Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever wondered how services like Netflix can stream movies to millions of people all at once? Or how your favorite apps on your phone just work seamlessly? Well, odds are the answer is Amazon Web Services, or AWS. It's kind of like the invisible infrastructure that powers a massive chunk of the internet. And today, we're going to pull back that curtain and see exactly how it makes our digital world tick.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to figure out what the cloud even is. Then we'll take a look at where it physically exists around the globe. After that, we'll dive into the amazing digital tools it gives you, how you actually pay for it all, and finally, we'll talk about your crucial role in keeping everything secure. So, let's just dive right in.
First up, Section 1. You hear the term cloud thrown around all the time, right? But it can feel, well, a little fuzzy. So what are we really talking about when we say something is in the cloud?
So yeah, when you're saving your photos to the cloud or running an app on the cloud, what does that actually mean? Is it just someone else's computer sitting in a warehouse somewhere? Well, yes and no. It's a little more sophisticated than that.
At its most basic level, cloud computing is just getting all the tech resources you need. Things like servers, databases, storage, software delivered to you over the internet. The big idea here, the real game changer, is the shift from owning all the expensive physical gear yourself to just renting it from a provider like AWS.
And what makes the cloud so incredibly powerful are these 5 key characteristics. You can get resources whenever you want, on demand. You can scale them up or down in an instant. That's what we call elasticity. And because it's a measured service, you only pay for exactly what you use, down to the second. It's a totally different way of thinking about technology.
And you can choose how much you want to manage yourself. So, let's start at the foundation, Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS. Here, AWS gives you the raw building blocks, the virtual servers, the storage, and you manage the software on top. Now, move up a level to Platform as a Service, or PaaS. Here, AWS handles the operating system for you, so you can just focus on your code. And at the very top, you have Software as a Service, or SaaS. Think of things you use every day like Gmail or Slack, where everything is managed for you. You just log in and go.
Okay, so if the cloud isn't some fluffy thing up in the sky, where is it? Where does all this computing actually happen? In this next section, we're going to look at the mind-boggling physical infrastructure that makes up the AWS global footprint.
The cloud lives in what AWS calls regions. These are basically large geographic areas all over the world, like US East 1 in Virginia or EUS 2 in London. And the key thing to know is that they are completely separate and isolated from each other. That's a huge deal for reliability, because if something goes wrong in one region, it doesn't bring down the others.
Now, let's zoom in a little closer. Inside each of those regions, you'll find multiple availability zones, or AZs. You can think of an AZ as a cluster of one or more massive data centers, and each one has its own independent power, its own cooling, its own networking. This is the secret sauce for high availability. If one data center has an issue, your application just keeps on running in another AZ without skipping a beat.
So you can see how this all stacks up to create incredible resilience. It starts with this massive global network. That network is broken up into those distinct regions we talked about. Each region has multiple availability zones, and each of those AZs is made up of one or more physical data centers. An outage in a single building is just a tiny blip, not a catastrophe.
And there's one more piece to the puzzle: edge locations. These are way more numerous, smaller sites scattered all across the globe. Their job is to cache popular content, like videos or images, really close to you. So when you're watching your favorite show, it's probably streaming from an edge location in your city, not from a data center halfway across the country. That's what makes everything feel so snappy and fast.
Okay, so we've covered the why and the where. Now for the really fun part, the what. What can you actually do with AWS? Well, think of it as the world's biggest digital toolbox.
AWS has over 200 different services. Yeah, that's a lot. And honestly, it can be pretty overwhelming at first. But don't sweat it. You don't need to know all of them. We're just going to focus on the 3 fundamental building blocks that pretty much everything else is built on top of.
First thing you need is compute. This is the raw processing power, the engine, the brains of your entire operation. The most well-known service here is Amazon EC2, which lets you rent virtual servers in the cloud to run, well, anything you can imagine, from a simple website to a complex scientific model.
Okay, you've got the brains, but now you need a place to put all your stuff. That's storage. Think of it like a giant, infinitely expandable digital filing cabinet.
The classic service here is Amazon S3, the simple storage service where you can store pretty much unlimited amounts of data, photos, videos, backups, you name it.
And finally, you've got to connect all your resources together. And, really importantly, keep them safe. That's where networking comes in. It's the plumbing that makes everything flow. With Amazon VPC, or Virtual Private Cloud, you can carve out your own private, isolated slice of the AWS cloud where your servers and storage can talk to each other but stay protected from the public internet. These three, compute, storage, and networking, are the foundation of almost everything built on the cloud today.
Right. We have all these amazing tools at our disposal. But what's the catch? How much does all this power cost? This is where the cloud completely changes the financial rules of the game.
See, in the old days, IT meant spending a ton of money upfront on powerful, expensive servers before you even wrote a single line of code. That's capital expenditure, or CapEx. The cloud just flips that entire model on its head. It turns it into operational expenditure, or OpEx. You're not buying the power plant anymore, you're just paying your monthly electricity bill. And that shift is what allowed a whole generation of startups to get started without needing millions in venture capital.
And you even have choices in how you pay. On-demand is the most flexible. You pay by the second, no strings attached. If you know you're in it for the long haul, say for a year or 3, you can get a huge discount with reserved instances. And then there's the most interesting one, spot instances.
Yeah, you heard that right, 90%. Spot instances lets you bid on AWS's spare, unused compute capacity. Now there's a catch. AWS can take that server back with only a 2-minute warning, but for that risk, you can get discounts of up to 90%. This is absolutely perfect for jobs that can be stopped and started, like huge data analysis projects or video rendering.
Okay, let's wrap up with what is probably the single most important topic of all: security. Because in the cloud, security isn't just something the provider handles for you, it's a partnership. If you take away only one single thing from this whole discussion, make it this sentence. Seriously, burn this into your brain. AWS was responsible for security of the cloud, but you, the customer, are responsible for security in the cloud. Let's break down exactly what that means.
This is called the shared responsibility model. So, look at the table. On one side, you've got AWS's job. They handled the physical security, the concrete, the steel, the guards at the door, the hardware itself. They secure the cloud's foundation. On the other side, that's your job. You're responsible for everything you put inside that secure environment. That means encrypting your data, carefully managing who has access, setting up your firewalls correctly, and making sure your own application code is secure. It is truly a team effort.
So there you have it. We've gone from the why to the where, the what, the how much, and the how. We've seen how AWS gives us these incredible fundamental building blocks of the modern internet. So the only real question left, the really fun one, is, with all this unbelievable power right at your fingertips, what are you going to create?